Good morning and welcome to a very special edition of ConeX Portal LinkedIn Live. Today we celebrate all women in engineering. However, as I mentioned in my post yesterday, I suspect many of us could only count on one hand the number of women we actually know in this field. So what does the current climate look like and what does the future hold for women in engineering? When Sam and I discussed doing this event, I knew exactly who I wanted to invite, and I'm so pleased all of my guests agreed to join me this morning. So I'd like to ask them to take the opportunity to introduce themselves. So going around my screen, should we start with Denise?
Yeah, hi. Thank you for inviting me. I work in precision engineering with my partner. His business was established in 1956, and I work as business development director for him. I actually wanted to go into engineering when I was at school, but I wasn't allowed because I was a girl. So so I understand, promoting women in engineering is so important. And we do have a young lady that works for us and she's excellent. She's excelled. So for me, this is such an important day to help promote women in engineering.
Absolutely agree, Denise, and I'm with you on that. I know when I was at school, I wanted to take technical drawing as part of my studies, and like you, I was told I couldn't do it because I was a girl. So yes, absolutely.
You sent me into cooking and domestic science, so I satellite the cooker, and really, the past 45 years have been no different. I'm no good in the kitchen.
Normally. Thanks, Denise. Julie, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, good morning. So I'm Julie Poppleton. I'm Director of Careers at Chase Terrace Academy. So we are based in Burnswood in Staffordshire. So I've been in post for about 9 years. I'm the careers leader and I'm also the careers practitioner. And when I joined the school 9 years ago, it was quite a new role. Part of my mission was to make sure that the engagement was there with employers and parents and students, and that we got that triangular approach. And it became quite evident from starting that STEM careers and sort of promoting and looking at the gender sort of gap was something we really needed to look at doing sort of in school. So that's part of what I've been doing sort of over the last 9 years.
Fantastic. Thanks, Julie. Karima?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Angela, for inviting me. This is it's an absolute joy to be with you all as well on the panel here today. So I didn't have the same negativity that you guys had at the beginning. It was quite open, and I could choose any subject I wanted to. I actually did a science degree to begin with, and then thought I'm not too sure what type of role I'll go for science. So then I went into doing engineering afterwards, and it was perfect. It was so great to get your hands dirty, do things with your hands. And I always found in the house as well. I live in a household with my mum and dad and my brother, and it was always my mum and myself that did all the IKEA building and everything like that. So it was always myself and my mum that did that, which is quite a nice dynamic for a household. So yeah, I've always enjoyed engineering. At the moment, I'm senior manufacturing engineer at a research centre with Strathclyde University. I have been with research since I graduated, really, and I do love it because you get to explore different types of engineering. I'm more in precision engineering as well, so working a lot with manufacturers, larger organisations or SMEs is a joy to work with all the type of organisations. But yeah, that's me, and love engineering, love today. It's great to show off all the women in engineering.
That's amazing, Karima. I mean, you're just so enthusiastic about it, and that's how I felt. When I worked down on the manufacturing floor, and I used to go down there, and I would be the only woman amongst all the blokes, the line builders, the engineers, and I used to think, why aren't more women enthusiastic about this? This is so brilliant, So it's great to have you here, Karima. And if we move to Sophie, you're relatively new, I believe, to this whole sector.
So thanks for inviting me today. I'm really looking forward to this opportunity. It's going to be really interesting to speak to you all. So I'm a year into my degree apprenticeship, and it's like a 4.5-year program. So at the end of it, I'll have my HNC and my degree. The program that I'm doing is brilliant, really, because I get to do the practical side as well. But but in my department, I am the only female, so it is. It's quite a large department, and it's a bit intimidating sometimes. But it's nice that they all listen to me, and I'm able to get my point across sometimes, because I know a lot of places might not be that. They might not be that involved and not really let you get as involved as what they do here. So I'm really lucky to be in such a great place. But yeah, it'd be nice for more people to feel like that. So
exactly, Sophie. Yeah, and that's what we're hoping, that we'll encourage more young women to feel the same way that you and Karima do. And last but not least, Alex, you have a business that does something spectacular. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Angela. Thank you for inviting me, and happy International Women in Engineering Day to everybody. So I'm Alex Knight. I trained as a mechanical engineer in my first degree and then did medical engineering afterwards. But I've worked throughout my career of probably over about 15 years in engineering industry in various different engineering roles. But then back in 2019, I set up a not-for-profit social enterprise called STEMazing, which is all about supporting women in STEM to shine as visible role models and inspire our next generation. So we do a whole host of things to support women in engineering, but all across STEM, to be more confident, visible role models, to empower them to kind of step up and be more visible and vocal. And then we link into primary school children and inspire them with really hands-on, practical STEMazing kids activities to try and open their eyes to the possible opportunities for them in STEM, but also to give them visible female role models, because we know that's just so important.
Absolutely. And I think it's good as well that you catch them so young, because that's when we need to be catching them, not when they're at the GCSE stage, when they're young, when they're, open to ideas. Don't you think, Alex?
Completely, yeah. And I also do support STEM outreach and engagement at all levels. But I think from my own experience of being in industry, there tends to be a priority in focusing on secondary school or further education, because that's the immediate pipeline into the businesses. So it kind of makes sense for them in terms of their investment. But as you said, actually, STEM sort of stereotypes and those kind of negative misperceptions of who can or should do roles like engineering start very, very young. Research shows that to age 3 to 5 year olds already show less support for counter stereotypical roles, like a girl wanting to be an engineer. And that's because of how it's portrayed in society and who we see in the media and in books, and how it's taught in schools, and just the lack of profile of visible women in engineering. So yeah, that's why we target such young children, as young as possible. And yeah, it can be hard sometimes though to get the investment for those things, because it's going to be a long time before they are the immediate talent pipeline for businesses. However, I do see a shift changing that, and businesses recognizing now the importance of targeting much younger children.
It's so important, without a doubt. So I'd like to go across to Julie, because I think, Julie, you more than anybody, you have a finger on the pulse with young women and young girls within the schools at the moment. What's the appetite like there for engineering?
It's really interesting. As I said, it was something that I'd identified as part of an audit when I came in 9 years ago, that it was something that we needed to do. And we've actually had a comprehensive programme running, whether that's been employer engagement, whether it's been work experience, whether it's been employer visits, whether it's been embedded into the curriculum. And we knew that we were very visionary, and we were very early leaders in terms of that. So we were kind of before the Careers and Enterprise company and those Gatsby benchmarks and so the CDI framework came along. And that was one of the reasons that we are identified locally to actually lead our local careers hub for Stoke and Staffordshire, which we've got 85 schools as part of that. So we knew we were sort of very well ahead of the game, with regard to what needed to be done. And Sophie, I'm delighted, was actually one of our students that was part of that journey. So I remember engaging and meeting with Sophie from, sort of year 7. So she was a part of that journey, was involved in all those, sort of activities and work experience and guidance and, employer engagement. So although I've seen an increase, I would have to say, sadly, it's still not enough. So, we're actually starting to offer an engineering course this year for the first time as a GCSE option, and that has been in response to the labour market and the skills gap. And what's really good again is that I can go out there and talk to businesses, and I do, and I proactively go out there and network and listen to what they're saying to bring that back into our curriculum to respond, to sort of what employers are saying to us. But even with that, sadly, we had one girl that chose to do the engineering as a GCSE option. Originally, I thought it was none, but I have since actually been told we did have one girl come forward. But they are having wobbles about whether to do that or not, because actually, the students are already giving her a little bit of stick. Why on earth is it that she's, sort of doing that? So even with all of the, awareness and education and, that's out there, it's still not where it needs to be. So much more needs to be done. And I know, talking to other careers leaders in other schools, and as I said, I'm very actively involved with employers as well. So I'm an active member on board through the Chamber of Commerce, through sort of local skills board, and also a parliamentary group for females as well. And this is common. I know this isn't just us, and I know this isn't just relevant to, Staffordshire as well. They are seeing an increase, but so much more has still got to be done. And I think it's already been alluded to, that predominantly seems to be the lack of female role models. We need to be seen so much, sort of more. So one organisation we work very closely with, Make UK, they sort of fed back to me for students. It's about something that they can see, almost kind of touch, taste. It's something that's visual, that's in front of them. So we need so many more role models, which is why I'm delighted that Sophie is here, today as part of one of our shining role models for that.
That's amazing, and amazing that you're actually doing that engineering course starting in September. Sophie, how did you find it? Did you find when you decided to go into engineering that you got stick off your peers, or did you find it a struggle to be sort of within what really is quite a male dominated environment, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all throughout school, I knew I wanted to do engineering from a young age, especially with the help and support from Julie. She really helped me realise that. And I think there's not really a lot of that either nowadays. Like, people are pushed into certain sectors that they think are suited for them, rather than actually trying to find what they actually enjoy, just because it might be a stereotypical job for them to go into. So, but all throughout school, I had people ask me, why do you want to do that? And why would you want to go into that instead of something that other people are going? And I mean, even in my year at sixth form, there was only me and one or two other girls that were even considering an engineering as a career. And that was out of 60 odd people. So
Wow.
even now, it's a very low rate of people that are even considering it, never mind actually progressing into it for their whole career. And it's a shame, because the women engineers that I do know bring so much to the business, as well as the men. Like, they're just on the same level. There's no need to think that people are on a different level because of their gender. So I think really the support, as Alex said, lower down in school would really benefit people, because from a young age, not only the women and girls would see that it's a career option for them, but other people would realise that it's not a strange career to go into, and they would see people being encouraged from a young age to go into it. So I think, yeah, it's very important. So
Definitely. Sorry, go on, Denise.
Yeah, do you think that the girls really understand all the different roles within engineering? So it isn't necessarily standing at a CNC machine, but there's all of these other opportunities available for them in engineering, rather than just standing at a machine.
I
Do you
think
think?
definitely until I started to show interest in it myself, there was nothing available to even tell me the kinds of engineering that there were, and there's so many. But when I started to get interested in it and spoke to Julie about it, then we found different jobs and different sectors that I could look into. But without that, there's no support, there's no showing people just on a day-to-day basis how many different kinds of engineering there are. People just immediately think engineering and think standing outside on a building site or sitting and working at a machine for days on end. They don't think of it as like a high-end office job or working with people outside and things like that, and going around different companies and meeting new people. They don't think of any of that. So it'd be definitely important to be able to see all the different kinds of engineering earlier on.
So did you have chance to visit many factories and many organisations and see those people working in different roles? Did you visit many?
Well, when I was choosing what I wanted to do, it was actually in COVID. So a lot of the things that I did, were online. But I still had a lot of support and guidance, and the people that I did meet, whether it was on Teams or Zoom, were very enthusiastic about me coming and working for them. And when I had my interview here, I was shown around the factory. I was shown around all the different departments and what all the different engineers do. So they really gave me a wide range of things that I could pick up on, instead of just saying, this is an engineer, this is what you're going to be doing. There's a lot of different steps to it. So.
And I think that's what we need to get out more, don't we? I mean, I remember when my daughter did her GCSEs, and her physics teacher, she was incredibly good at physics, and her physics teacher encouraged her to take physics at A level. And she asked me, well, what job can I do if I take physics? And we hadn't got a clue. We couldn't tell her. The only thing we could think of was a physics teacher. And she said, don't want to be a teacher. So she didn't take it. And she's such a wasted opportunity, because she's such an incredibly intelligent kid who's now doing a job that just is way below what her capabilities are, you know. Interestingly, Karima, you actually wrote an article for the manufacturer, didn't you, about diversity?
Yeah, I've actually been quite fortunate. I am one of the few female engineers in my organisation right now, and also in other organisations, the ones I've worked for previously. However, sometimes I actually read a comment. I think it's from Andrea on the comments there about when people come onto the shop floor, they see me at the machine, and sometimes they don't realise that I'm a technical person, and they would quite often direct their comments to my my colleagues, and then my colleagues actually, because they respect me and know that I'm the one that actually did all the work, they actually say, oh, well, Karima can tell you about that. And then I start talking, especially with his accent as well. They kind of get a bit of a shock, but then realise that actually I'm the person that has done all the work there as well. But as Denise has also said, you're absolutely right. The vast majority of things you can do as an engineer, it's not just like I have mentioned, getting your hands dirty. It's doing a lot of programming. It's doing a lot of the organisation work. There's a lot of things that females are very good at, as well as men as well, of course. But I think we've not been shown those qualities that in our sector. But another thing I thought of there was, when you talk about engineering, when I actually applied for my engineering degree, on the personal statement, I spent a long time trying to think of the definition of an engineer. And I'm in a family of doctors. My dad's a doctor, my brother's a doctor, and they couldn't really define it for me. So we did a lot of research, and there's so many bits to the word engineering. It's not just, you know, I think it can be expanded even more now if you think about it. It can always develop into different definitions as well. So it's an interesting comment that Denise said there about what an engineer actually is and what they can do.
I know I've had quite a few conversations with some of my connections on LinkedIn about the use of the word engineer and how much it's been diluted when you think about it, because, you know, people call themselves heating engineers, and so the actual title itself has come to not mean, or to mean too much. You know, I know in places like Spain and Germany, to become an engineer is very much recognised as being a highly skilled profession. and it's a title that's earned and very much revered. So just sort of going across to Alex, you know, sort of listening to what Sophie and Karima have been saying, be good to get your thoughts and comments.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, you know, and I've experienced this as well myself. I mean, it's great to hear that Karima's had a positive experience, but still people, when you have that initial sort of first meets, their initial reaction is that you're not the technical person or not an engineer. And I've had exactly the same thing. I've had, you know, when I've been running meetings, I've had people assume that I'm there to take the notes when they first meet me. And then once we start going and I explain, no, I'm actually leading this project, I'm here to run the meeting, people sort of look a little bit sheepish. And it's that unconscious bias that we all have. And again, this is ingrained in us from such a young age. It's the thing that puts young girls off even considering that they could see themselves in a role in engineering in future. But it's also what causes unconscious bias in the rest of society. So men and other women as well, who then are shocked when they find out that a woman is an engineer. So we need to all be tackling that unconscious bias at a young age as well. And again, visible role models are so key to this. So having visible female role models as engineers for young girls inspires them, and for young boys opens their mind and they see those roles as more equitable. So they will have less unconscious bias when they grow up to be men and go into the world. So, you know, there's so many benefits to having more female representation. But the problem is there's not enough of us, and therefore the burden falls heavily on those in the minority when you're also trying to do your day job and juggle all the other things in your life. So we need to kind of work together, I think, and support people in the minority to be able to step up as visible role models and share the burden. So majority allies can support in those things. They can, for example, organise the day out to go and do a school visit. But the woman engineer comes up and does a talk as well, but she doesn't have to do any of the other organisation around it, so it doesn't distract from her day job. There's got to be lots of, you know, if we think outside the box, there's lots of ways that we can all work together to raise the profile of women engineers.
Do you think as well? Sorry, go on, Denise.
I was just going to say as well, I think from my experience, women bring a different perspective. So when you're problem solving, we can bring something different to the table in the problem solving skills. Maybe we look at things slightly differently. So it brings a more balanced approach sometimes. And that's kind of what I've experienced in the past. So having a woman in engineering looking at those areas of problem solving could be really beneficial to a company.
Yeah,
completely. I put an article out today actually that says there's research to show that businesses who have diverse teams are 6 times more likely to be innovative and agile, because exactly that, Denise, you get different perspectives, and just based on your background and the way that you view the world and all your experiences leading up to that point, give you a fresh insight and something new to bring to the table, and that sparks new ideas, which accelerates the innovation process. And the theme of InWed this year is all about innovation. So considering we know it's like a business critical objective, why are we not investing more in driving diversity, which then drives innovation?
Alex, do you think, because I know, you know, I've come across this before talking to women throughout the last couple of years, that a lot of women sort of have a bit of imposter syndrome. They're not as forward as the men are, that they sort of tend to doubt themselves and take a back seat. Do you find, you know, trying to reach out to women within manufacturing and getting them to be role models, do you find that a lot of them have that self-doubt and so don't promote themselves as well?
Yeah, I do find that is very common. And I mean, I recognize that both men and women suffer from imposter syndrome. It's not just women. But in my experience, especially when I first started STEMazing and was trying to encourage women from all different sectors of engineering to step up and do more as a visible role model, like, you know, be more visible on social media, go and put themselves for awards, that kind of thing. There is a definite reluctance and there is a lot of imposter syndrome. especially in women who are maybe working in engineering organizations and even doing technical related roles, but maybe don't have the engineering degree or, you know, PhD in whatever, and therefore don't feel like they could own the title role model. And so a lot of what I do is, first of all, supporting them to be more confident as a role model, and then doing the inspiration piece, because it's a lot of pressure to just expect people who haven't had any training and development in public engagement or presentation and communication to go and do that. So yeah, it is a big hurdle, and I think we can do a lot to support women before we expect them to go out and be inspirational communicators, inspiring the next generation.
Can I say I've also got my own business. So although I couldn't go into engineering, I went into innovation, and I had a car accident. It was a long story, and after that, I decided to start my own company and make have my own products made. And it was really hard to be heard as a woman. It would have been easier to give up than to keep going, but because of my mentality, it was push, 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 and there was no way I was going to be stopped. But I had to pay people to actually do the jobs that I could have done if I'd have been an engineer, which didn't sit well with me at the time, but it was my only option. And I did win a British title for innovation, and worked as STEM ambassador for a while to go in to try and help make the world of innovation more visible to the younger generation. But I suppose for me, growing up as a child, my father lectured as a senior engineer in engineering. So from 5 years old, I was helping rebuild washing machines. And so it was in me. I was always going to find my route back, even if school wasn't going to enable me to take a formal qualification. And now because I'm in precision engineering as well. So it's been a long journey. And I think it would have been easier to give up than it would have been to keep going. But sometimes you just have to be strong and look for all of those areas that can help you, and being really open and proactive and being out there with the support is really vital for all the women out there who are looking for those areas of help.
Julie, just coming back to you, do you find that you get much support in the school from women outside of the school?
Yeah, huge amount of help. As I say, what's been particularly good for myself, and I know that a lot of careers colleagues sadly don't have the flexibility to be able to go out and engage with business and, you know, sort of employers. I've been able to do that, and what that's meant is I have been able to bring in, you know, including some of those female role models into school. You know, one of those I think is has either joined us today locally, Ruth Forster, who owns a local engineering recruitment company. And going back to what Alex was saying about going to primary schools, again, it was something we identified really earlier on that we needed to get out to primary schools. So Ruth actually came with me out to primary schools to represent a female in engineering as well. And you're right, we saw all of those reactions, you know, including from some of the teaching staff who were there, who didn't actually know the employers that I was taking in and what their roles were and what they were doing. So we've got fantastic support. I mean, it's really interesting. I mentioned about the engineering course that's starting in September. That's actually quite a challenge for us. And I know that it would be the same in other schools. And that could also be why it's not something they can afford to do. From a funding perspective, you know, we literally haven't got the money to be able to buy the equipment and the resources, you know, that further in higher education and sort of training providers have got access to. So even buying aprons and lathes and things like that has been a huge challenge. But thank goodness from the employer engagement, actually we've managed to get some really good sponsorship for that as part of their corporate social responsibility. That's been a really good way forward for that. And again, that's where they're committed to offer that sort of mentoring and come in and either offer work experience or come into some of their lessons, or again, where we've looked at the curriculum, actually mapping that where it's a particular you know, sort of module, how can we go out to employers and look at, you know, sort of doing that. Yes, we've not got the equipment in school, but we can look at how can we go out to industry and look at meeting it in that way as well. So yeah, we've got great support.
And Karima, we've had a question in the comments from Yinch saying, does promoting engineering to girls have to be different from the way it's currently done? What's your thoughts?
So I did read that comment. I think it does, because we still haven't got enough females in engineering, so we need to be doing something differently. I've been racking my brain trying to think of what it is, but I think we'll get there eventually. But it definitely does need to change.
I think so too. And I think, as Alex said earlier, it's all of us working together to help to promote it and to help to show what a great industry it is, the wealth of careers that's available. As Andrea said, there are so many, design, quality, machining, inspection. There's so many different types of career options available. And I remember speaking to somebody a few months ago, and that they made a great comment, which I pass on to everybody, is that manufacturing is for everyone, and it really is. It's not just about standing on the shop floor next to a machine, is it? There's some amazing things going on within manufacturing. We've come an awful long way from the dark, dirty days of the old mills. It's just not like that anymore. And again, it's just that stigma. It's dispelling that stigma, the myth, and just showing young women what a great career choice it can be.
Angela, can I just add a comment to that, just with regard to, and I want to invite Sophie to comment as well. If I recall, Sophie, because I say it was back in sort of year 7, year 8, we we're having those very early conversations. And I remember, again, you were the only girl that got out a visit to go and visit a construction site where we were looking at so many different careers. You were the only girl to put yourself forward. And the first conversation, remember, we were having, it was your mom that very much encouraged you to put yourself forward for that. And we've only just sort of briefly touched on the role of parents and how influential that they can very much be. And again, to me, that goes down to primary school level and parents having that awareness and information. So does my memory serve me correctly there, Sophie? I'm sure that was what you said to me, that your mom had really kind of encouraged you for that.
Yeah, it was. It was actually the company that we went to. She worked there, but she worked in accounting. But she knew the company. She knew what it was like, and she said it'd be brilliant for you because I know how much you've considered that already. But she was exactly the same as you mentioned earlier on about technical drawing. She wanted to do that at school, and she again was told that she couldn't because she was female. So she ended up going to secretarial college and doing that for the rest of her life. And ever since, she's regretted it. And she just said, do what you want to do. She said, don't let anyone else tell you that you can't because you're female. So definitely, it's a very important role that parents play in what you choose to do. Because say if my mom had said, why do you want to do that? You're a girl, do something else. That would have probably changed my mind completely. So it's something as small as that could stop you from doing the career that you want to do. But one thing I did want to mention as well was through my company, we've done careers fairs. And I've gone to those as an apprentice, and we've come up with some like interactive games and activities for the children to do at the schools we've been to. But one thing I did notice when I was there, the boys always come forward to do the activities and have a chat and have a look at what we do. And the girls kind of stand further back. They look interested and they want to come over, but they're a bit nervous because it's an engineering careers fair. So they don't really know what they want to ask or what they want to do. So I noticed that when I was there, rather than walking round and going to the stands, and I was actually part of the stand, that seeing the girls look over and notice me there and notice that there was another woman in that job, they came over then and talked to me and asked me questions because they knew that I'd have been in a similar circumstance. So I think always seeing someone else that's gone through what you have and understands, it's definitely important. So, yeah.
That's amazing, Sophie. And Karima, I think you can relate to that, saying what you said earlier about your mum and yeah.
They definitely helped. Yeah, if they weren't there to tell me I could do whatever I want to do, I wouldn't have probably been in engineering as well. So it definitely helps for your family to back you all the way.
Yeah, and I recall I spoke to Gemma Selly a couple of years ago. She's part of the Plymouth Manufacturing Group, and when they first decided to do their manufacturing festival, they realised that the best way to reach the young children and the students was through the parents. And so they actually went out on Facebook originally to get the parents interested in order to then get the children and students interested. So yes, I agree that they play a huge part in the career choices that our children make. And again, if they aren't aware of those career choices, then they're not going to talk about them, are they?
Mhm.
Fantastic. So just to wrap up, really, I'd like to go round the room and just, ask you, what do we need to do? Denise?
We need more visibility, and we need more support and mentoring for women to go into the different roles of engineering, and to just know of all of those career choices that they could make, which are vast. So, yeah.
Julie?
From an education perspective, as we're moving much more towards sort of a multi-academy trust approach where we've got both primaries and secondaries that are there, I think, already there's a lot of collaboration. There's some great stories and great case studies out there. But as I've already said, so much more needs to be done. And as we've already identified, it needs to involve parents. It needs to start off from a younger age. It needs to involve employers. And to me, it needs to be planning more of a sort of 7-year journey, so picking up those students, but then also consistently following them through all the way through secondary. So don't just dip in with that one exposure to sort of engineering. It needs to be then carried on, sort of being picked up throughout secondary.
Karima?
Yeah, well, tapping into the parents thing again. I'm going into baby groups and speaking to the mums of the really tiny ones just to show them it's an option. Try not to put the stigma of boys' toys and girls' toys as well. Things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Sophie?
I think it's just the encouragement from everybody, from schools, from parents, from your friends. Even something as small as that could really change your mind on your career. So if people knew more about it and people knew the possibilities that there are in the sector, then they'd be more encouraging towards you. So I think once everybody's more aware of what you can do with this career, then that's very important to just be able to encourage people. So
Thank you. Now, Alex?
I think we need to be educating everyone, like we said, all the time. We have such poor misconceptions of what engineering is, particularly in areas like manufacturing, where people don't understand actually how vital it is to everything we rely on in our lives. And if we could build the language of engineering at a young age at primary schools, including it in things like how do we get the parents involved? I love that idea. And actually, because we learn maths and science from a young age, but we don't learn how that is connected to solving real world problems through the likes of engineering. That needs to be a message that is taught at infant school, primary school, and mentioned in communications that we have with parents, and obviously therefore teachers need to be on board with that. And the number of times I've been into schools and teachers, even science teachers, don't know what engineering is. So there's a massive education piece that, yes, we can help with, absolutely, as visible role models, but we need to get businesses and government level prioritizing this more highly so that we can start changing that perception. And we need to do that at grassroots. And then, as has been said before by Julie, keep reinforcing that throughout the educational piece.
Absolutely. Just been absolutely amazing to talk to you guys. Really has, very interesting, and I really hope that this will encourage more young women engineers, that it will encourage more manufacturers to look at their women engineers and to support them and to get that word out into the schools, as we said, at an early age. And I think you probably all join me in saying, you know, it's a fantastic day to celebrate women in engineering, but we need more of them, without a doubt.
British engineering is some of the best in the world, so
Yes, yeah,
come
absolutely.
and join in.
Yes, it's a great world. Well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. So I hope you found it interesting watching, and thank you everybody for your comments. Hopefully we can encourage more young women to consider engineering as a career. If you'd like to connect with any of my guests, I'm sure they'll be happy to drop their details in the comments afterwards. And obviously, if you'd like more information on how to get involved with ConeX Portal, please do message either Sam Bainham or myself. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to my
Thank
guests.
you.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
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 Bye. Have a good day.
Bye.